Hello, and welcome to a special edition of Tea with Terry. Many of you know, I started a show where I tracked my journey with the work I do with HIV and also later on my journey with being a person who tested positive while on PrEP. So I decided to kind of reflect on my journey and I always want to be self-reflective and talk about my experience in the way that I feel that it can help someone else out or just hear a story so you won't feel that you're alone out there. So I always like to refer to my first TikTok video where I disclosed my status. It was a video where I talked about it, and if I can, I'm going to try to see if I can get it linked somewhere in this video or see if we can splice it in. If not, you are welcome to go find it at Tea with Terry on TikTok. It's pinned on my page. But with all that being said, I remember making that video because I wanted to have something that felt like it was my property, something that felt like it was me telling my story. I was in such a place of shock that I just needed to say how I was feeling and be able to move on. So, um, that was about 7 months ago, roughly. And I'm counting this because I wanted to show you all. These are all the pill bottles I've taken since my seroconversion. Just because I wanted to show y'all this is what like my daily life has become. And I will say at first it was very, very hard to get used to taking a pill every day. Oh God, it did terrible things on my body where I just felt tired. I wanted to sleep all day. And I did not know where my life was gonna head 7 months ago. If I'm being very honest, I was working in a job that I loved. However, I wasn't getting enough hours, or was no future plans about moving into a space where I felt would authentically show my skills and abilities. And it was really hard to even make a decision of like looking at places past there. But why I'm very happy I did because I am now an infectious disease program manager, which means that I am managing a lot of programs that are directly involving people like myself who are living with HIV or at risk of coming in contact with HIV or STIs. And I've been doing this work for a little over a decade now, and it all started with me and a project I did about my uncle dying from AIDS complications. And then it was the GSA, and then it was the taking my friends up north, and then it was the protesting, then it was the youth jobs where you're a youth worker in like a youth space, and it just spirals from there to health educator, sexual health outreach coordinator, then health educator again, then youth sexual outreach education coordinator, community engagement specialist. All of this work I've done has been a love letter to my community. And I mean, my community of folks like me living with HIV and my queer community as well. Um, when I look back on that TikTok video I made, I can see how just vulnerable I was and how I had not known anything that I thought I knew about HIV. I thought that I was so experienced and I hadn't known about like HIV mutations. And now when I talk about my story, I'm very clear about a lot of my experiences with being a person who had challenges accessing healthcare, whether it's through lack of insurance, where when I tell my story now about seroconverting on PrEP, it is, I started PrEP in May of 2017. And I was on it for a long time, and then I lost my job. So I was off it for about a year. And then I got insurance through school, so I was able to get back on it again and stayed on it until I was able to get the injectable PrEP. One thing I know about PrEP now is it is a drug that you have to use literally every day to build up its resistance. And also, what I know different about HIV is there are several different variants, mutations, and I am just very clear when I tell my story that, like, I don't think that PrEP is a bad thing. I don't think that people should never take PrEP. I don't think that there is a conspiracy out there. I do believe that I am part of the 1% or 1.2% of folks who PrEP just did not work for. And I have made my peace with that. And I'm using my just platform, my presence to always make sure I'm having really true, authentic conversations, not just with like my community members, but with providers I work with, and making sure they understand the importance of being there for clients or doing further research, and they have a lot of power and privilege in a situation. So I want to make sure that they are very aware of what a lot of people who look like me experience when it comes to healthcare systems. We are at a very pivotal point in our country where we get to decide what we want it to look like. And this is not a plea for anything, but this is a moment to reflect on, for me at least, what do I want the next 40 years of HIV to look like? You know, what do I want the access to healthcare to look like? What do I want transmission to look like? I am wholeheartedly in support of a journey to zero that gets us to a functioning zero where we are not seeing a disproportionate group of people coming in contact with HIV, or we are not seeing a group of individuals coming in contact with HIV because we are making narratives about them as though it is their fault that they're coming in contact with it. What I would like to see the next 40 years of HIV look like is treatment plans, policies, and procedures that make sure money is in place to pay for healthcare, to pay for insurance, to pay for people's ability to pay for housing and living, because we all know that it's a huge intersectionality of where we see a lot of transmission. When I think about what I would like to see when I think about getting to zero, I'd like it to be a space where people are having access to healthcare, having access to housing, access to education, access to mental health services, and access to a way of living that will provide them a level of comfortability and vulnerability. I think that in my experience, in my lived experience, I have had a lot of really bad things happen, but I've also had a lot of really, really good things happen too. And I'm just really happy that I held out enough strength to live through some of those bad things, because I think that the happy things always trumped it, all those bad things. And they were so far away and they never really shaped who I got to be or who I get to be in this world. And I guess that's my message to a lot of folks who are living with HIV. The narratives that they create about us, the stereotypes, we don't have to be those, and we aren't those. I think that we get to choose our stories, and we get to choose how we get to live our lives. I think that we also get to educate people on how they get to treat us and talk to us. And that has, for me, looked like creating boundaries for people who were once a part of my life, but because they are ignorant to my status, and people who live with my status, they don't get the privilege of getting to know me and the privilege of getting to like say that they have like had this space with me. And it is a true privilege. Your presence is, you know, And I just want us to really appreciate that. I believe that I am overly joyed when I think about the conversation that I've had an opportunity to have with people in this space. I want to make sure that when anyone listens to these conversations, they know that they're coming authentically from Black people who are passionate about the work that they do, passionate about their community, but also passionate about their own damn survival. And that was something, as someone who has lived through depression and thoughts of not wanting to be here, that has been really hard to come to terms with. But I'm so happy that I've been able to have these opportunities with people who are not just surviving but thriving in their lives, because they show me more reasons to continue in the work that I love to do, and also participate in my life in a way that I get to show up for myself. And I just want to take this space to thank any and everyone who's been able to let me interview them, ask them questions, even the folks who I couldn't get on the show, just like having an opportunity to reach out to you all and build connections through that. It has been absolutely incredible. I also want to thank Big Mouth Productions for all of the assistance, all the work that you all have done to help me with this. I came to you all with a bunch of scripts and I was like, this is what I want to talk about. And you all have been more than gracious in creating the space and opportunities and reaching out to guests. I don't think I could have done this in the same way without you all. So I just want to highlight you all and thank you all. I also want to just give shout out to the Chicago Department of Public Health and all of the people who were part of creating this initiative and making sure that I got to just tell my story. I remember saying I wanted to do something like this, and at the start of the second movie, we were like, okay, what would this look like? And I'm just grateful for you all thinking that this was something that was worth highlighting. I want to thank every cast member who was a part of HIV and the Journey to Zero, whether you're part of part one, part two, part three. I want to thank you all for sharing your stories, for pouring into me at a time that my cup was empty. You all are incredibly beautiful people, and I hope you continue to shine and know that there is so much substance and just beauty to your presence and your story. And I'm just honored to know every single one of you all, cast, crew, production, everybody. You're absolutely incredible. And last but not least, this is just to anyone who's been able to watch, to come out to a premiere or screening, a panel discussion, set up a panel discussion. You are how we get to the journey to zero. When you create these spaces to talk about HIV in a normalizing way and encouraging folks to show up as they are, you are a part of how we get to zero. I want to thank you all for opening your doors, for allowing everyone to speak their truths, and making this a part of your agendas, your strategies for how you plan around healthcare and challenging healthcare systems and listening to patients and clients. This is my contribution to society, and I know that it'll only be greater, but I thank everybody that's been a part of this journey. And all I hope is I get to continue this in whatever capacity it may look like outside of this. This has been Tea with Terry. Thank you so much for tuning in and taking a sip. You are all beautiful, and this is until next time.